Straight ahead on Law&Crime Daily, Johnny Depp's rebuttal case begins.
My overall assessment of her opinions is that they're not worth the paper they're not written on.
How Depp's experts refute claims made by Heard's witnesses. And was Amber Heard's Aquaman role in jeopardy?
You know it when you see it, and the chemistry wasn't there.
Hear from Warner Brothers executives. Plus,
none of these tweets have anything to do with the Waldman statements. They don't include the Waldman statements. You know, these hashtags are only hashtags that Schnell, in his opinion, felt that they were negative towards Ms. Heard.
Depp's experts say the Waldman statements didn't affect Heard's reputation. And later,
perjury is considered an attack on the interest of justice.
What it would take for Amber Heard to face perjury charges. Law&Crime Daily covering court cases from coast to coast. Welcome everyone to Law&Crime Daily. I'm your host, Brian Buckmeyer. Amber Heard's team rests its case, and Johnny Depp's team calls a series of witnesses during its rebuttal case. Law&Crime's Anjanette Levy is here with what one of those witnesses said about Amber Heard's salary and whether statements made by Johnny Depp's lawyer hurt her career. Anjanette?
Well, Brian, you may recall that Richard Marks is an entertainment industry expert. He's a real mover and shaker in Hollywood, and he knows how deals were made. He testified in Johnny Depp's case in chief, and now he was back in rebuttal. He is testifying about claims by Amber Heard's expert that her career was hurt significantly by statements made by Adam Waldman on behalf of Johnny Depp. Now, Heard's expert, Catherine Arnold, had claimed her career was harmed by Adam Waldman's statements to the Daily Mail and his tweets claiming Heard's allegations of abuse were a hoax. But Mark said that Heard was a supporting character in Aquaman, and her role in the second film may have been scaled back because she simply didn't have great chemistry with the film's star, Jason Momoa. Mark said Heard's career was not harmed, in his opinion, by either Waldman or Johnny Depp.
Do you have an understanding of whether Aquaman 2 was the last option in Ms. Heard's contract with Warner Brothers?
Oh, no. Aquaman 2 has not even been released, and Warner Brothers has a fourth option for Aquaman 3 or another movie where Mitra appears, that character, and they've agreed to double the salary again. So it's in success, and that assumes that they recast and that they make the movie.
Are you aware of Ms. Arnold's testimony that Ms. Heard would have made several $1 million on endorsement deals, such as the one she had with L'Oreal? Do you agree with that opinion?
After the breakout moment that Ms. Arnold talked about, Christmas 2018, we didn't see endorsement deals flocking to Ms. Heard during that 16-month period before Adam Waldman made a few statements.
Mr. Marks, what's your overall assessment of Ms. Arnold's opinions in this case?
My opinion, as someone who's made deals as a deal maker for almost 50 years, is that she calls herself an expert, but she's not. She doesn't have the background. She doesn't have the day-to-day knowledge.
And as Richard Marks said, he's been in Hollywood for almost 50 years. During the case in chief for Johnny Depp, he had testified about how deals are made in Hollywood. This is something he's been doing for a long time. He even referenced Swiftie Lazar's Oscar party. That was a really famous event years and years ago. I remember hearing about it as a kid on Entertainment Tonight and stuff like that. And that was a party where people wanted to be seen and wanted to make deals. So this guy's been around for a really long time and obviously disagrees wholeheartedly with Catherine Arnold on the impact Johnny Depp or Adam Waldman may have had on the bottom line for Amber Heard.
Yeah, Anjanette, so Richard Marks, in my opinion, was great on direct. He seemed to not just give conclusions, but showed his work, so to speak. Were there any calculations that really stuck out to you?
You know, not particularly. I mean, this whole thing about the $50 million, I don't know how, you know, reaching that number as Catherine Arnold did, I'm just not so sure about that. We didn't have an expert, you know, she didn't really testify and have charts and things like that as to how that number, you know, she came up with that. So nothing stuck out to me other than that fact.
Yeah. Now, Anjanette, on cross, Heard's team made a point that he had never negotiated a superhero deal. Did that lessen the strength of his testimony, that being Mark's?
You know, I don't think it did. You know, superhero, he said, you know, she's not Jason Momoa. Jason Momoa was the guy. He was the main character. He is the person who could walk in and get the big payday. Somebody like Amber Heard couldn't walk in and get that payday. He also said she's the type of actress who still has to read and audition for a role. This isn't like somebody like Jason Momoa, who they probably just call up his agent and say, we want him.
Yeah. And not like Zendaya either, who she was trying to compare the MJ of Spider-Man. But Anjanette, where do you think this jury is left after the rebuttal witnesses in terms of Amber Heard's acting prospects and damages?
Well, I think that the fact that we've heard at least 2 witnesses now say that there were major chemistry issues between Jason Momoa and Amber Heard, it makes you wonder. Maybe there are issues with her developing chemistry, because chemistry is something I think that people can have. We work in television. We know about chemistry, right? It's something you guys can have immediately, or it's something that can be developed. So maybe there's just an issue with development of chemistry with her, possibly, and other actors.
Yeah, we'll see how the chemistry works out in front of the jury. Anjanette, hang out for a minute. We'll be back in a second. Still ahead on Law and Crime Daily, attorneys zero in on Amber Heard's role in Aquaman. Why a Warner Brothers executive says there were discussions to replace Heard in the series. Welcome back. As part of Depp's rebuttal case, jurors heard video testimony from Warner Brothers executive Walter Hamada, president of DC Films. Hamada says Heard had chemistry issues with Aquaman co-star Jason Momoa.
Was there any delay in Warner Brothers exercising the option to cast Ms. Heard in Aquaman 2?
Yes, there was.
What was the cause of the delay?
There were conversations about potentially recasting. They didn't really have a lot of chemistry together. You know, the reality is it's not uncommon on movies for 2 leads to not have chemistry, and that it's sort of movie magic and editorial, the ability to sort of put performances together, and with the magic of, you know, a great score and how you put the pieces together, you can fabricate sort of that chemistry. And so I think at the end of the day, I think if you watch the movie, they look like they had great chemistry. But I just know that through the course of the post-production that it took a lot of effort to get there. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes it's very easy. You just put the, you know, characters on screen together and they work. And sometimes it's harder. And so...
Can you give me anything more specific about what it was with Amber Heard and Jason Momoa that was difficult for the chemistry?
No, because it's like what makes a movie star a movie star. Like you know it when you see it, and the chemistry wasn't there.
All right, let's see how this chemistry works in this Q&A. Joining us today is entertainment lawyer Mitra Ahouraian, co-host Terry Austin, and Law and Crime correspondent Anjanette Levy. Mitra, as an entertainment lawyer, listening to Arnold, Marks, and now Hamada, how does this work in this business? Who is right?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to understand the way these deals work and what an option is and the way options work. Options, you're typically negotiating the sequels or the second movie or perhaps a prequel. You negotiate all of that in the primary deal for the movie. And you might negotiate a bump in the fee or a bump in the back end that depends on how the movie before it did. The studio is under no obligation to renew an option, and they don't even have to give you a reason why they didn't do it. So it's complete discretion up to them, and the only way the movie moves forward is if they give a written notice that they've exercised the option and they're moving forward with it, which did not happen here. That also plays a little bit into when we talk about some of the numbers and how speculative the proposed numbers have been. Options, again, they're typically pre-negotiated. So we should know what those numbers are.
Absolutely. Now, Terry, overall, did you think that Hamada was credible as a witness?
Oh, Brian, he was an excellent witness. First of all, he was the president of DC Inc., which is a subsidiary of Warner Brothers. And he's an unbiased witness. He's not for Heard, he's not for Depp. And so he has no change in that quarter. And he not only verified the fact that the salary was not affected by Waldman's statements. He confirmed there was no chemistry between Jason Momoa and Amber Heard. He said she wasn't the co-star. Her role was never reduced. So he definitely confirmed many aspects of this case for the Depp team, and he was unbiased. Great witness.
Yeah, great witness. The only critique I would have is I think I kind of saw a lack of chemistry in the movie myself, but hey, that's just my opinion. And Jeanette, as part of his deposition, Humada confirmed Heard's salary was not affected by Depp or Waldman's statements. How does Heard's team come back from something like that?
I don't think they can, because her salary was in the contract, okay? So it's in there. Her salary was not impacted. She is not somebody, Richard Marx said, she's not somebody who can go in and demand a doubling or tripling of a salary based on the success of a movie and that type of role. One thing I wanted to point out too, Brian, there are morality clauses in a lot of contracts. I don't know if they exist in movie contracts, but I do know they do in television contracts, and that's another way where they can just cut you out or get rid of you, is if they deem that you've done something to embarrass them. So it'd be interesting to know if that exists in the contract as well.
Absolutely, and it's going to be crazy how this plays out. Waiting for that summation to come up. Thank you both, and Jeanette, great work as always. Coming up on Law and Crime Daily, the analytics of the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard defamation trial. Depp's internet analytics expert takes the stand again, but does his findings match up with Heard's experts? That's ahead on Law and Crime Daily. Welcome back. On Tuesday, Depp's team called a repeat witness as part of the rebuttal case. Douglas Vanya responded to Heard's social media expert regarding the correlation between statements made by Adam Waldman that Heard's allegations of domestic abuse were made up and subsequent negative social media hashtags.
So what I'm trying to do, and what's at issue of the case today at this point, is were these tweets, did they contain the Waldman statements? That's what where we're at right now. And the first thing that I noticed is 35% of the tweets were prior to the Waldman statements. So again, remember, my assignment is to determine if the Waldman statements are part of the tweets that Mr. Schnell analyzed. So obviously, if these tweets were prior to the Waldman statements, in no way could they have anything to do with the Waldman statements. These hashtags are only hashtags that Schnell, in his opinion, felt that they were negative towards Ms. Heard. Mr. Schnell provided no evidence that any of the tweets were related to the Waldman statements. Mr. Schnell, there's no correlation there. He also provided no evidence that there's any causation that, the Waldman statements caused any economic harm towards Ms. Heard.
All right, Terry, maybe I'm too cautious of a defense attorney, but are we getting close to the point where we're getting lost in the weeds with this rebuttal witnesses on the issue of social media, or is it still persuasive?
Well, the jury might be a little bit lost in the weeds, but I think Doug Vanya is one of the most persuasive witnesses that we've had, certainly on IP issues. He basically was there to say that Ron Schnell and Catherine Arnold didn't know what they were talking about. They didn't make a correlation. They didn't make a causation connection between the Waldman statements and the hashtags. And I think it was effective. It was good for the jury to hear this at least one more time. There was no connection to economic harm. So I think he was worthwhile, even though it was a little bit on the technical side.
Yeah, Mitra, both sides seem to search based on their own metrics to get the results that they're looking for their side. Can a jury ignore either side and just decide on their own? And if they do, what do you think the verdict will be on this issue?
I think that there's some recognition that most scientific studies and analytical studies have a premise that they're basing off. And in this case, he was basing it specifically off of the Waldman statements. But even at the end of the day, I think a jury will recognize that this is correlation. This is not causation. And we need a causative link. We need X to be happening because of Y, or Y to be happening because of X. So that's the biggest issue. It's not the information. It's that we don't have the causation.
Yeah, correlation or causation, that's definitely going to be a discussion in the jury deliberation room, and we'll see how that continues. But to keep up with the gavel-to-gavel coverage of the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard trial, make sure to follow our newest podcast, Law and Crime Sidebar. Listen in as some of Law and Crime's top hosts recap the highs and lows of the trial so far, straight from the Fairfax County Courthouse in Virginia. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or online at lawandcrime.com. When we come back, could Amber Heard face perjury charges? Still ahead, what it could take to convict the actress and how likely it is she will be charged. Welcome back. We're taking a closer look now at the testimony of Amber Heard. Could the defendant in this case face perjury charges? Well, Law and Crime Network's Sierra Gillespie explains what constitutes perjury in Virginia and what it would take for Heard to be convicted.
Your signature appears right under the statement, quote, "I declare, under penalty of perjury, under the laws of the state of Virginia, that the foregoing is true and correct."
That is correct.
Experts say some of Amber Heard's recent testimony could prove problematic.
I think there's a level of falsity that is happening to the point that several witnesses might have also committed perjury by going and testifying on the stand under oath, under penalty of perjury, and providing a completely different fact than another witness.
But the ongoing defamation suit isn't Heard's first bout with perjury. After illegally bringing her and Depp's dogs into Australia in 2015, Heard was investigated for the crime.
I am truly sorry that Pistol and Boo were not declared. Protecting Australia is important.
Australian officials say that investigation is still ongoing. Closer to home, Depp's attorney Adam Waldman says Los Angeles officials opened an investigation into Heard's perjurious claims.
I filed a claim with the LAPD regarding these perjurious statements that Ms. Heard and her best friend Rocky Pennington had made.
Simply put, perjury is lying under oath. But trial attorney Catherine Lizardo says it's a lot more complicated.
Perjury in Virginia is a class 5 felony. What that means is it's punishable by 1 to 10 years in prison. But since it's a class 5, it can also be downgraded into a misdemeanor.
Legal analyst Dina Dahl says Heard wouldn't be charged right away.
Let's say she loses and basically the jury is deciding that she is kind of lying about a lot of this. They're not deciding it beyond a reasonable doubt. It's only this preponderance of evidence. So she's not kind of automatically convicted of perjury.
Dahl explains it would take a separate trial to convict Heard.
What would happen is a prosecutor would have to bring a separate charge of perjury against her. And they could use this evidence, of course, at trial.
And just how likely is it that Heard would face perjury charges?
At the beginning of this trial, when I was asked that, I said, you know, there's no way anyone will be prosecuted for perjury. But as I listened to this more and more and more, as a lawyer, I am ethically appalled by any perjurious statements or even coercing a witness to commit perjury on the stand. And to some extent, I'm wondering if there will be a message sent after this trial that you cannot make these types of statements in court and not have ramification.
Reporting for Law and Crime Network, I'm Sierra Gillespie.
Mitra, in your mind, what, if any, facts in the case so far could lead to a perjury conviction?
Well, I think the fact of the donation is a big one. I think she was very much caught in that lie, trying to differentiate between the word pledge and donate, saying that she uses those words interchangeably. But the clear answer is she did not donate that money that she promised to donate to the ACLU and the Children's Hospital. And instead, said that I got sued for $50 million in 2019, and that's why I did not donate that money. So there's a clear issue there. The other issue is the domestic abuse. Did that happen? Did that not happen? In a case like this, we are in a civil case. There's a he said, she said. A lot of times, it's going to be hard to show that it was a flat out lie, as opposed to two parties having different renditions of what exactly happened in these situations. The reality is we have two people who were drinking and doing drugs and in a toxic relationship, and we don't know exactly what happened.
Absolutely.
And does that amount to perjury? I don't know.
Yeah. Now, Terry, with that, the question then becomes, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being we're definitely going to see this happen, what's the likelihood of seeing perjury charges here?
I think the likelihood is very slim. I would say in most cases it would be a 1, maybe here 2 or 3, only because, like Mitra said, we've seen so many lies and those lies have been really blatant. But I think they'd have to prove that it was false. And we've seen a lot of times the statements have been, I don't recall. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you as well, Terry. Well, thank you both. And thank you for joining us here on Law and Crime Daily. We'll see you next time as we discuss justice in America.